First contact. The first thing Marcus Reynolds noticed as his escape pod hurtled through the atmosphere was that the navigation system had completely failed. The second thing was that he was probably going to die. Warning lights bathed the cramped interior in crimson as the pod shuddered violently. Through the viewport, he caught glimpses of a vast, verdant landscape rushing up to meet him. Beautiful, if not for the fact that it would likely be the last thing he ever saw. "Come on, you piece of junk," Marcus growled, fingers flying over the emergency thrusters. Years of training as the fleet's top systems engineer kicked in, muscle memory taking over where panic might have reigned. He'd survived 3 war zones and a reactor breach. He wasn't about to let a simple crash landing finish him off. The ground approached with terrifying speed. At the last possible moment, the auxiliary thrusters sputtered to life, slowing his descent just enough that when the pod slammed into the forest canopy, it didn't immediately disintegrate. He remembered the impact, the scream of tearing metal, branches splintering, his body thrown against restraints hard enough to bruise ribs. And then darkness. Marcus woke to the smell of blood, his own, and the peculiar scent of alien vegetation. Rain pattered against the cracked viewport, creating rivulets that distorted the fading light outside. Night was coming. He ran a mental inventory: 2 cracked ribs, a gash along his forearm that had mostly stopped bleeding, and a throbbing headache that suggested a concussion. Nothing fatal, at least not immediately. The pod systems were dead, the comms array destroyed. His fleet, assuming any of them had survived the ambush that had sent him scrambling for the escape pod in the first place, would have no way to track him. He was on his own. Standard protocol for downed personnel was clear: secure shelter, assess surroundings, establish communications. With the pod wedged at an awkward angle between 2 massive trees, its hull breached in multiple places, it offered little protection. He needed to find better shelter before nightfall. Marcus gathered what supplies he could salvage: a compact medical kit, emergency rations, a multi-tool, and his service pistol. Not much, but it would have to do. With a grunt of pain, he forced the pod's hatch open and stepped out into an alien world. The air was thick and humid, heavier than Earth standard but breathable. Massive trees with iridescent blue-green foliage towered overhead, their trunks wider than any redwood he'd ever seen. Strange, chirping calls echoed through the undergrowth, and somewhere in the distance, something large moved through the forest with deliberate, heavy steps. Marcus checked his wrist computer, the only piece of technology that seemed to have survived intact. The atmospheric readings showed no immediate toxins, but the planet wasn't in any of his databases. The reconnaissance mission had taken them far beyond charted space, and now he was paying the price for humanity's endless curiosity. He oriented himself using the setting sun and began walking, hoping to find higher ground where he might spot signs of water or shelter. The pain in his ribs made each step a challenge, but the military had taught him to compartmentalize discomfort, 1 foot in front of the other. Survive now, complain later. As darkness fell, the forest transformed. Bioluminescent fungi began to glow with soft blue light, providing just enough illumination to navigate by. The rain had stopped, but water still dripped from the canopy above, occasionally finding its way down the back of his collar. 2 hours of careful hiking brought him to the edge of a cliff overlooking a vast valley. In the moonlight, 2 moons, he noted absently, 1 silver and 1 with a distinctly reddish tinge. He could make out what appeared to be structures nestled against the far rock face. Not natural formations, but buildings of some kind. Lights flickered among them, too steady to be natural phenomena. Intelligent life. The mission briefing had mentioned the possibility, but seeing evidence firsthand made his heart race. First contact scenarios had been drilled into him, but those protocols assumed he'd have the weight of the entire fleet behind him, not that he'd be a lone, injured human stumbling out of the woods. A sound from behind made him freeze, the soft crunch of something moving carefully through the underbrush. Not an animal's careless tread, but the deliberate stealth of a predator or a hunter. Marcus turned slowly, his hand moving to the pistol at his hip. They emerged from the trees like shadows given form, humanoid figures, taller than average humans, moving with liquid grace. In the moonlight, he could make out features that sent a chill down his spine. Feline faces with alert ears, powerful bodies covered in short, sleek fur in patterns of dark stripes or spots, and eyes that reflected the moonlight like polished gems. 5 of them formed a semicircle around him, holding weapons that appeared to be a seamless blend of advanced technology and traditional craftsmanship. Sleek rifles with glowing energy cores alongside curved blades that looked sharp enough to slice through armor. "Well," Marcus said quietly, carefully raising his empty hands, "guess I'm not as alone as I thought." The tallest of the figures stepped forward, massive and imposing. Deep russet fur with black markings covered powerful shoulders, and piercing amber eyes studied Marcus with unnerving intelligence. When it spoke, the translator in Marcus's wrist computer struggled for a moment before producing rough approximations. "You trespass, Sky-Fallen One," the voice rumbled, distinctly male. "Your machine tears our forest. Your presence disturbs our hunting grounds." Marcus swallowed hard. First contact was happening whether he was ready or not. "I apologize for the disturbance," he said clearly, knowing his translator would be working to convert his words. "My vessel was damaged. I did not intend to trespass. I am alone and injured." The leader's ear flicked, a dismissive gesture. Many come from Sky with such claims. Then more follow. Then weapons speak where words fail. "I'm not an advanced scout," Marcus insisted. "I'm a survivor. An engineer, not a soldier." A partial truth. Every fleet member had combat training, but his primary function had always been fixing things, not breaking them. Engineer. The word seemed to catch the attention of a smaller figure to the right. Female, judging by the more slender build and higher voice. Her pelt was a soft gray dappled with darker spots. "One who builds and repairs." Marcus nodded cautiously. "Yes. Machines, systems, energy sources." A rapid exchange followed in their native language, too complex for his translator to follow completely. He caught fragments, something about failing systems, needed repairs, an opportunity perhaps. The leader turned back to him, ears laid flat against his skull. "You will come. If you speak truth, perhaps you live. If you lie." He made a slashing motion across his throat that needed no translation. Marcus weighed his options. Refuse and likely die here on this cliff, or go with these beings and possibly find shelter, medical attention, and a chance to learn about this world. Not much of a choice. "Lead the way," he said with more confidence than he felt. The settlement was more advanced than it had appeared from a distance, built into and against the rock face of the valley. It blended natural cave systems with constructed elements. Energy fields glimmered at some entrances, and what looked like solar collectors were arrayed on higher outcroppings. Sentries stood watch at key points, all bearing the same blend of advanced and traditional weaponry. As they led him through the settlement, Marcus felt dozens of eyes tracking his movement. The inhabitants varied in size and coloration, but shared the same feline features and powerful, graceful builds. They watched him with expressions ranging from open curiosity to undisguised hostility. They brought him to a chamber deeper within the cliff face, well lit by some form of ambient lighting that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. A group of older individuals waited there, distinguished by elaborate markings painted onto their fur and more ornate attire. "Elders," his captor announced, "we found this alien near the sky machine that fell during the last light." An ancient female with silver-gray fur leaned forward, studying Marcus with eyes clouded by age, but still sharp with intelligence. "Do you have a name, Star Traveler?" "Marcus Reynolds, Systems Engineer, Earth Fleet Reconnaissance," he replied formally. "I mean no harm to your people. My ship was attacked, and I barely escaped. I am Sharina, Voice of elders for the Ceresi clan of the Nether Valley, she replied. Your kind has not walked our world before, but we have heard stories from the trading clans of beings like you. She gestured to his injuries. You bleed and breathe as we do. That is something. Marcus winced as a fresh wave of pain shot through his ribs. I could use medical attention, if you're willing. And in return, I offer my skills. Your guard mentioned systems that need repair. Another elder, male with battle scars crisscrossing his face, growled. We need no alien touching our sacred technology. The ancestors' gifts are not for outsider hands. Our water purification system fails. Riken, Sharina countered sharply. The heating coils for the nursery caves grow weak. Would you let cubs go cold and thirsty to preserve your pride? The scared elder, Riken, flattened his ears but said nothing more. Sharina turned back to Marcus. If you can prove useful, you may stay until your wounds heal. Tarek will watch you. If you attempt harm or deception, your life is forfeit. The russet-furred male who had captured him, Tarek, apparently, nodded grimly. Fair enough, Marcus agreed. It was better than he could have hoped for. I'll need to see these systems, understand how they work. Tomorrow, Sharina decided. Tonight, you rest and heal. Vela will tend your wounds. The slender gray-spotted female stepped forward, gesturing for Marcus to follow her to an adjoining chamber. As they walked, Marcus noticed how the others gave her a wide berth, some even averting their eyes. Interesting. She clearly held some special status among them, though whether it was respect or something else, he couldn't tell. The medical chamber was surprisingly advanced. Crystal-like formations hummed with energy, and instruments that appeared to be made of some metallic alloy he didn't recognize were arranged on a central table. Vela gestured for him to sit. Remove upper covering, she instructed, her command of his language through the translator still stilted. Must see damage. Marcus carefully peeled off his torn uniform jacket and the undershirt beneath, revealing the dark bruising spreading across his ribs. Vela hissed softly. Bones cracked, not broken, she pronounced after a careful examination with a handheld device that emitted a soft purple light. I fix. She applied a cool, aromatic paste to his ribs that immediately began to numb the pain, then wrapped the area with a bandage that seemed to adhere to itself. For the gash on his arm, she used a different salve, this one stinging sharply before creating a protective seal over the wound. Thank you, Marcus said sincerely. You're a healer. Clan Shaman, she corrected. I heal body and spirit. Connect to ancestors. She tilted her head, studying him. Your spirit is strong but tangled. Far from your stars. Far from your people. Before Marcus could respond to that unsettling assessment, a commotion erupted in the main chamber. Angry voices raised in their native tongue, followed by what sounded like something heavy being thrown. Vela's ears flattened. Nyara returns, she sighed. Always fighting. Who's Nyara? Marcus asked. His question was answered moments later when another Ceresi stormed into the medical chamber. She was striking, midnight black fur with barely visible rosette patterns, piercing blue eyes bright with fury, and a powerful athletic build that even her obvious limp couldn't diminish. One arm was held awkwardly against her side, dark blood matting the fur. She stopped short when she saw Marcus, her good hand instantly going to the blade at her hip. Outsider, she snarled, the translator struggling with the intensity of her tone. Patient, Vela corrected firmly, stepping between them. Like you should be. Sit. Let me see what foolishness cost you this time. Marcus expected the fierce warrior to argue, but to his surprise, she seemed to deflate slightly, her ears drooping as she reluctantly moved to sit on a stone bench opposite him. Up close, he could see old scars beneath her fur, evidence of countless battles survived. Hunting patrol found Sky Machine, Nara said, glaring at Marcus while Vela examined her wounded arm. You bring others? No, Marcus replied. I'm alone. stranded. She studied him with those unnervingly bright eyes, then snorted. "Bad luck for you." "Better than being dead," he countered. The hint of a smile, or perhaps a snarl, touched her muzzle before she winced as Vela probed her injury. "Deep puncture," the shaman scolded. "Poison claw from Ridge Stalker." Nyara nodded once, tight-lipped with pain. "Must clean." "Will hurt," Vela warned, reaching for a crystal vial containing an iridescent liquid. "Just do it," Nyara growled. Marcus watched with reluctant admiration as the warrior endured the clearly excruciating treatment without a sound, only the rigid set of her shoulders and the white-knuckled grip of her good hand betraying her agony. When it was done, Vela wrapped the arm and turned away to clean her instruments. Nyara caught Marcus staring and bared her teeth slightly. "What?" "High pain tolerance," he observed. "Military. Hunter. Warrior. Scout." She lifted her chin. "Best of clan. And modest too," Marcus said before he could stop himself. To his surprise, Nyara's harsh expression cracked, and she gave a short, barking laugh. No use for modesty in battle. It was a brief moment of connection, quickly extinguished when Tarek appeared at the doorway. "Engineer," he said to Marcus. "Come. I show where you sleep." He glanced at Nyara, his expression cooling. "Elder Council wants report on northern boundary breach." "Tell elders I report when I choose," Nyara replied, her tone once again hard and dismissive. Tarek's fur bristled, but he said nothing more, merely gesturing impatiently for Marcus to follow him. As Marcus left the chamber, he felt Nyara's gaze following him. Not hostile exactly, but intense, assessing, calculating. He had the distinct impression he'd just been pulled into complicated clan politics he didn't understand, with currents and undercurrents that could prove as dangerous as any physical threat. His survival would depend not just on making himself useful, but on navigating these alien social waters without drowning in them. First contact, indeed. And this was only day one. The bond forms. Marcus spent his first 3 days among the Sarasi in a whirlwind of activity. True to their agreement, he was put to work examining their failing systems, primarily the water purification array that served the entire settlement and the thermal regulators for what they called the nursery caves, where the clan's young were raised communally. The technology was fascinating, a hybrid of advanced engineering principles and materials he'd never encountered before. Power sources that utilized crystalline structures to harness and distribute energy. Filtration membranes composed of living tissue that could actively target and neutralize contaminants. Adaptive thermal conduits that responded to ambient conditions without electronic controls. "Your ancestors built all this?" Marcus asked Tarek, who remained his constant shadow, watching his every move with suspicious eyes. "Not built. Discovered," Tarek corrected. "Stories say early Saresi found ancient ruins across world. Learned to use what remained. Some say ancestors of ancestors spoke with the builders before they left." The builders. Tarek made a sweeping gesture toward the sky. "Those who came before. Left when stars were young. Left their gifts behind." Marcus tried to focus on the technical challenge rather than the archaeological implications. The water system's failure was relatively straightforward. Mineral buildup in key junctions had reduced flow to critical components. The thermal regulators were trickier, with microcrystal fractures that disrupted their energy resonance patterns. By the third day, he had both systems operating at near-peak efficiency again, earning grudging respect from most of the clan. Children, cubs, they called them, had begun to follow him at a distance, curious about the strange furless being in their midst. Some of the warriors had even started to nod acknowledgement when he passed. Only Nyara maintained her distance, watching him from afar with those piercing blue eyes, her expression unreadable. Since their brief interaction in the medical chamber, she had avoided him entirely. Until the night of the feast. "You've restored life, water, and warmth to our young," Sharina announced to the gathered clan. "The council acknowledges your worth, Marcus of Earth." The Great Hall. A massive natural cavern, expanded and shaped by generations of Cirassi hands, was filled with the entire clan. Food was abundant, spread on low stone tables, and Cirassi customs apparently dictated shared dishes, with clan members sitting in concentric circles around the central fire. Marcus had been given a place of some honor, near the elders but not among them. A guest, not yet truly one of them. He was acutely aware of being the only human in a sea of feline faces, but the atmosphere was not unfriendly. "Thank you," he responded, inclining his head. "I'm grateful for your hospitality." "The council has decided," Sharina continued, "until your people come, or until you find your own path forward, you may dwell among us as a crafter ally. Tarek will show you to permanent quarters tomorrow." It was more than Marcus had dared hope for, official status within the clan structure, even if it was a peripheral one. He'd have time to repair his emergency beacon, perhaps even salvage more from his escape pod. Eventually, maybe the fleet would find him. If there was still a fleet to find. The ambush had been devastating, and he had no way of knowing how many ships had survived. The feast began in earnest then, a surprisingly joyous affair for a species that had initially seemed so stern and wary. Music played on instruments he couldn't name, stories were told with dramatic gestures, and young cubs tumbled playfully between the circles of adults. Across the fire, Marcus spotted Nyara for the first time that evening. Unlike most of the clan who wore decorative attire for the feast, she remained in her utilitarian hunting garb. Her wounded arm was still bound, though she seemed to have better mobility than before. She sat, somewhat apart from others, a space around her that few approached. Vela noticed his gaze. "Nyara stands apart by choice," the shaman said quietly. "Many respect. Few understand." "What's her story?" Marcus asked, genuinely curious. "Lost mate and cub to border raiders 3 seasons past," Vela explained. "Took 12 enemy lives in return. Hunts alone now. Speaks little. Anger keeps her warm instead of companionship." Marcus watched as a server placed a portion of food before Nyara, who barely acknowledged the gesture. Something about her isolation resonated with him. He too had lost much, though to the void of space rather than to raiders. The feast continued around him, growing more boisterous as fermented berry wine flowed freely. Marcus sampled the Cirassi cuisine cautiously at first, then with growing appreciation. Most of it was meat. The Cirassi were primarily carnivores, but prepared with complex herbs and spices that transformed the simple into culinary art. He was midway through a particularly delicious dish of something resembling venison when he noticed Nyara struggling. Her wounded arm, still not fully healed, made handling the communal eating implements difficult. She was clearly hungry but too proud to ask for assistance, and the others seemed to respect her space too much to offer help uninvited. Without thinking too much about it, Marcus rose from his place and made his way around the fire, carrying a plate of the tenderest portions he'd noticed. Conversation faltered as heads turned to watch his progress. By the time he reached Nyara's side, a strange hush had fallen over the nearest circles. "Thought you might want some of this," he said, crouching down beside her. "It's good." Nyara's ears flattened slightly. "I need no help," she growled, low enough that only he could hear. "Everyone needs help sometimes," Marcus replied calmly. "Even the best hunter in the clan." Her eyes narrowed, but he saw a flicker of something. Surprise, perhaps, or reluctant amusement. "Besides," he continued, setting the plate down between them, "I'm just being selfish. The company over there is too polite. I figured you'd at least be honest about whether I'm annoying you." That earned him a short, huffed exhalation that might have been a laugh. "You are annoying me," she said, but some of the tension had left her shoulders. "See. Honest." Marcus grinned and tore off a piece of meat, offering it to her without thinking, exactly as he'd seen other Cirassi doing for their family members. "Try this one. It's amazing." Later, he would replay this moment 1,000 times in his mind. The complete silence that suddenly engulfed the cavern. The widening of Mara's eyes, pupils dilating to dark pools ringed with blue. The collective intake of breath from dozens of Ciresi throats. In that frozen instant, Nyara stared at the morsel of food in his fingers, then into his eyes. Then, deliberately, she leaned forward and took the food directly from his hand, her teeth gently grazing his fingertips, her eyes never leaving his. Something electric passed between them. Not romantic, not exactly, but significant in a way Marcus couldn't articulate. The moment stretched, endless and finite, before shattering as Vela's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "The bond is witnessed," the shaman declared, rising to her feet, her voice carrying the weight of ritual and tradition. "By ancient law and custom, before all gathered kin." Marcus looked around, bewildered, as murmurs erupted throughout the hall. Nyara had gone completely still beside him, her expression unreadable. "What just happened?" he asked quietly. Before she could answer, Tarek was there, looming over them both, his amber eyes blazing with what looked like shock and outrage. "You," he snarled at Marcus. "You knew what you did." "Clearly not," Marcus replied, standing slowly, keeping his movements non-threatening. "Someone want to explain?" Shariana approached, her aged face solemn, but not angry. "You offered food from your hand, directly to her mouth," she said. "Among Ciresi, this is an intimate act, reserved for those who wish to form a life bond. To accept such offering is to accept the bond." Marcus blinked, the implication slowly dawning on him. "Wait, are you saying I just proposed? Accidentally. And I accepted," Nyara said quietly beside him, finally rising to her feet. Her voice was neutral, carefully controlled. "Also accidentally." Tarek made a sound like a strangled growl. "This cannot stand. He is not Ciresi. He is not warrior. Ancient law makes no distinction." Shirina countered firmly. "The ritual is older than our memory. The bond is witnessed." "I didn't know," Marcus protested, feeling control of the situation slipping away. "There's obviously been a misunderstanding." The newcomer stalked closer, and Marcus instinctively shifted his stance, prepared for a confrontation. "Krezek," Nyara acknowledged, her tone flat. "This does not concern you. It concerns all Ciresi when our laws are mocked by an alien interloper," Krezek snarled. "When our greatest warrior is claimed by a weakling who cannot even hunt his own food." Marcus had been in enough tense situations to recognize when violence was imminent. Krezek's posture, the set of his ears, the flexing of clawed hands, all pointed to an attack in the making. Marcus tensed, calculating angles and approaches. To his surprise, it was Nyara who stepped forward, placing herself slightly between them. "The bond is witnessed," she said, her voice carrying a warning edge. "Challenge it, and you challenge the ancestors themselves." Krezek's ears flattened against his skull. "Then I challenge the bondmate to prove his worth. The trial of valor. Tonight." A collective gasp rippled through the assembly. Even Shirina looked troubled. "The trial is not given lightly," the elder cautioned. "And never to outsiders." "Then let him refuse," Krezek sneered. "Let him prove himself the coward we all know him to be." Marcus had no idea what the trial of valor entailed, but he recognized a deliberate provocation when he heard one. More importantly, he recognized that his standing among the Ciresi, precarious at best, hung in the balance. "I'll take your trial," he said evenly, meeting Krezek's hostile gaze. "Whatever it is." Nyara's head whipped around, her eyes wide with what might have been alarm. "You don't understand what you're agreeing to," she hissed. "Probably not," Marcus admitted quietly. "But I'm not backing down from a bully, no matter what planet I'm on." The challenge laid and accepted, the feast disintegrated into clusters of urgent conversation. Elders conferred in one corner, warriors in another. Marcus found himself isolated with Nyara, a bubble of space around them, as the clan processed the evening's unexpected developments. "You should not have done that," Nyara growled softly. Krezak has wanted me as mate since last season. Now he will ensure you fail the trial." "About that," Marcus said, lowering his voice, "what exactly did I just agree to?" Nyara's expression was grim. "The trial of valor tests courage, skill, and will. You must enter the sacred ruins beneath the settlement and retrieve a token from the Chamber of Ancestors. That doesn't sound so bad." Her blue eyes narrowed. "The ruins are unstable. Ancient defenses still activate. Spirit lights confuse mind and senses. Many warriors have died attempting the trial." "Ah," Marcus said, "that does sound bad." "If you fail," Nyara continued, "the bond is void. I become clanless, without honor." She looked away, adding quietly, "Again." That caught Marcus by surprise. "Wait, you'd be punished because I failed. That's not fair." "Life is not fair," she said simply. "I lost everything once. Survived. Will survive again." Marcus studied her, proud, fierce, damaged. A warrior who had carved out a solitary existence after tragedy, only to have a clueless human blunder into her life and complicate everything. "I won't fail," he said firmly. Nyara's gaze returned to his face, searching for something. "Why would you risk yourself for one you barely know? For a bond you never intended?" It was a fair question. Marcus considered it before answering. "Where I come from, we have a saying. You dance with the one who brought you," he said. "Means you stick with your partner, even when things get complicated. I caused this mess, accidentally or not. I won't leave you to face the consequences alone." For the first time, Nyara seemed to truly look at him, not as an outsider or an inconvenience, but as a person worthy of consideration. "You are strange," she decided finally. Marcus grinned. "I get that a lot." Shuriana approached them then, her expression solemn. "The council has ruled. The trial will proceed at moonrise. Until then, you may prepare." She looked between them, ancient eyes filled with concern. "This path is not what either of you would have chosen, but sometimes the ancestors guide our steps where we would not go ourselves." After the elder departed, Marcus turned back to Nyara. "I need to know everything about these ruins. Layout, defenses, whatever these spirit lights are." Nyara hesitated, then seemed to come to a decision. "Come," she said, rising. "I will show you what I can."